It only takes one really good deal to just springboard you into so much money in real estate. It's kind of crazy how the snowball effect develops with this kind of stuff. A little bit of instant equity, some tax savings, a good property, some cash flow, a better opportunity in the future, and boom, before you know it, you've 3, 4, 5x your initial equity position. That's kind of how this game works. That's why it's so awesome that you have control over your assets in real estate. So today I'm going to tell you a story about how 2 great small deals turned into 3 good big deals. First, I'm going to apologize for being late. I sent a wire for a property yesterday, and I entered the routing number in the routing number slot and in the account number slot. And we were troubleshooting that today, so I have to go back and send some money to make sure this 10 unit closed on time. So yeah, I'm 5 minutes late. I apologize, guys. Maybe I'll give away some extra freebies today. What do you think about that? So we'll talk about the coupon code in a second. First, let me talk to you about these properties. So look, the power of real estate is in being able to control the snowball effect, being able to kind of like make it deliberate, right? You can't do that with the stock market so much, but you can with real estate. You could say, I know something's worth more than what I'm purchasing it for if I do certain things to it, and I know I could trade it into something else and expand upon like this instant equity that I'm able to capture. This is really a live session for the more active operators. You have to play this much slower if you are not really hands-on. If you're a passive real estate investor, that's great. Your equity will grow over time. If you're an active real estate investor, you can actually buy equity and force equity. Kind of a cool concept, right? It's almost like buying capital gains at the time of purchase. Imagine if you bought a stock today. You went and bought Apple, 140 a share, but you know today it's actually worth 180, or sorry, it's trading for 140 and you could buy it for 100. That's a pretty cool concept, or for 50 or 70 or something like that. That's what we're doing here, and we're talking about how that could really blow you up in real estate. So in this particular sequence of deals, I'm going to tell you a couple funny stories about all of it. In this particular sequence of deals, we started with 2 great finds, home runs, little properties though, duplexes. Improved them. So we had 4 units. We were all into them for $114,000. Sat on them for a year and change, cash flowed for a bit, and then we traded them into 3 good deals. Not as great, but still good deals. Bigger deals. 17 units, $1.4 million worth of real estate, and the gain across that whole sequence of events from a variety of sources that I'll teach you about today. The total gain was $884,000. Earned on 114 of initial investment. That's an 8x. That's a 70% cash on cash return in about 12 months. That's extremely powerful, folks, especially when you can do this at scale, because this ain't the only one of these we're doing this year. Right? I'd love to do 20 of these this year. We'll probably do 5 or 6 of these in addition to our normal business. And there's a giant addition to your net worth when you do stuff like that, right? So, coupon code. I owe you guys some free shit because I'm late. I'm bringing cussing back to the lives. You guys miss me cursing? Hit the love button. It's not a like button. Hit the love button if you miss me cursing. Because for a while I was like behaving a little bit. I don't know why. I don't know what got into me. Maybe I was out of my element or something like that. Maybe I wasn't as caffeinated. Maybe it's the fact that I haven't been including the sauce, the hipster's tears, in my lives anymore. Usually I pour one up, but 8 a.m. is a little bit early, or 9 a.m. is a little bit early for that. But yeah, I'm bringing the F-bombs back, guys, but maybe just in a little bit more moderation. Anyways, coupon code. Look, in the spirit of today's live, the coupon code is going to be 8X. 8 and then a capital X though, right? I want you guys to listen. Let's see if you're listening. It's literally just the number 8 and a capital X right next to it. No spaces between them. Write it down. This is how it's going to work. Don't go to the store now. Don't let me see you logging off and shit. Hang around. I won't tell your boss you're here. After the live is over, I'll repost this live on Instagram. I'll post a story saying, hey, the video's up. And I'll post a story right after that saying coupon code is now active. That means I've activated it. You have to go to the store. It's in the link in bio, but I'll post a link too with that story announcement. But you probably have to be in the store in advance to be able to get it because the wolves they're fast, right? These people just snag these codes up quick. If the coupon code slot is not present when you're about to click that pay now button, that means you're either too early or too late. Right? People have redeemed let's make it 50 today. I'll give you guys 50 freebies because I was late as an apology. Right? So the wolves go fast. All 50 are gone. If you get there 2 minutes after I posted the story and go, I got there 2 minutes. People hit me up all the time. They're like, Elliot, I was there 10 minutes after the story. Is this even real? I'm like, 10 minutes? Bro, you are slow. Slipping. You got to be there within like 45 seconds, 1 minute after the story is posted on these weekly live ones, they're tough. They're really tough. So look, if you click pay now without having a coupon code accepted, you're giving me your money. And there's no telling what I'm going to spend it on. Probably more investment properties, to be honest. Let's keep it real. I'm not going to have fun with it. We were just talking, though, me and my account manager over here, about Dr. Dre's divorce and how like his financial laundry was completely just aired out, right? Because they had to figure out how to split the money. And I think their like average cost of living was pegged at like $3 million a month. Like that was their standard of living. Fucking mind blowing. My cost of living is like $3,500 a month, and I'm having a good time. I'm like living pretty good off $3,500 a month. I'll have beer a couple times a week. I only eat red meat. I don't eat white meat. But yeah, $3 million a month. Fucking nuts, dude. So contribute to my $3,500 a month lifestyle. If you are contributing to my $3,500 a month lifestyle, if you do not enter the coupon code and you click pay now. Anyways, now that we've moved on from that, look, let's talk about this crazy sequence of events. So what I'm going to talk to you about, the order we're going to do it in today is, we'll talk about the deals that were purchased, the initial 2 duplexes, how we got them, the process, the numbers, and then the sale of them. And then we'll talk about the replacement properties. We have names for all of these. I've given these kind of affectionate, like endearing names. We'll talk about the replacement properties after, and then we'll talk about the process to acquire, or the acquisition of those, how we found those deals, the process to purchase them. They're pretty stable, so there's not a lot of rehab or much to do with these properties. We'll talk about the numbers, and then we'll talk about some tax savings that we tacked onto the end of those, or that we will tack onto the end of those to save a whole bunch of money. So that's going to be the whole sequence of things. Then we'll wrap it up a little bit, and I'll tell you something, I don't know, maybe slightly wise or metaphorical perhaps, right? That just like you could take with you for the weekend and think about. That's going to get you thinking about how to scale your real estate deals at a higher coefficient of return like this. 8x in a year is pretty good, right? That's 800% ROI. A lot of people are happy with a 10% double-digit ROI. I need more than triple. I'm a little upset that this wasn't 4-digit ROI. Quadruple-digit returns. Do people even say that? So let's get right into it. Look, the sequence of events, the early deals. These are 2 duplexes. These duplexes were both somewhere in Indiana. I'm not going to keep telling you guys where in Indiana I'm investing, because you just go and hunt my markets. Then you try to sell me stuff as if you could sell for the same price that I can, and you can't. But anyways, these are both Indiana deals. Last time someone asked what state a deal was in when I posted it on a deal analysis video, one that we picked up. I said Antarctica, and I think he said he spit out his water when he read it or something like that. Look, these 2 properties were duplexes that needed full rehabs, right? And I'm going to tell you their names. These are what I call them. These are my endearing names. The first one's called Baby Mama Drama. I'll tell you why. The second one, we're going to call it No, It's a House. This was the video that I posted yesterday, by the way. That was the No, It's a House deal. So both duplexes. The first one, Baby Mama Drama, how did we buy it? Well, our acquisitions rep here, Sean, found it on Facebook Marketplace. It was being or maybe it was a Facebook group for the region. It was being marketed by a realtor there that also does some wholesale stuff, but it wasn't his wholesale deal. It was someone else's wholesale deal. We got into contract on this duplex going, I don't know the condition. They said it's all pretty good, but you don't really trust some of these wholesalers. They said it just needed a little bit of cosmetic rehab in one of the units, and it needed a roof. So we're like, cool. We're talking 15 grand, something like that. We get under contract. We walk these units. We get under contract for 42. So we ended up getting the property for 30. But we get under contract for 42. We send our property manager out. He walks the units. We don't send an inspector out for properties that we're going to buy. We don't need it. We just need our manager. They're going to be able to quote it out just fine. Walks the units. He goes, I've seen this deal before. This thing's been around the block. These wholesalers keep passing it from one to the next person. They keep land contracting it off to each other. That's never really a good sign, right? When there's a bunch of I call these buyers that can't afford these properties, the budget buyers, right? They sell these things to each other on land contracts, or they lease option it out to somebody else. So this property's been around the block. He'd passed on it. My property manager had passed on it before, but I'm like, whatever, dude. I know what I could sell this thing for if it was all prim and proper. I know what it's going to cost to rehab. Just walk it. So he walks it and he goes, look, dude, both units are gut jobs completely. The HVAC's old. The windows are pretty good. And the roof is way more trash than they're telling you. It's not just like a patch the leak or replace it in a couple years. It's a full tear off, and there's a giant hole, like the size of a basketball, in it that's been there for years, and it's just mildewed out, and it's been pouring into the bathtub of the upstairs unit like water. Thankfully, the water's coming into the bathroom, and most of it's landing in the tub when it rains, right? But water's been pouring in through this hole in the roof. There's just a bunch of water damage to the bathroom. It's kind of a shitty situation, right? And in my head, I'm like, well, I already planned to replace the roof because I assumed they were bullshitting when they said it just needs a patch and has a couple more years. But why not bust them back a little bit further, right? So we go, all right, guys, we're going to need a price reduction on this thing. We want 30. And they're like, no, 35. Eventually we go back and forth, right? And we end up landing at like 37 or something like that, right? We lock in at 37. We get into contract, we're getting ready to close, and the owner of the property, so not the wholesaler, but the owner of the property, who is the downstairs tenant, dies. And I made a video on this back when we bought this. It's still in my archives if you scroll. So the owner of the property dies, and according to the wholesaler, the tenant who lived in the upstairs before, they died as well. So I don't know if this is like in the property. So I don't know if this is a cursed building. I mean, someone dying of natural causes in a rental property is not like, doesn't have any adverse effect on the value, right? I know in like owner occupied places, they have to like mention it if someone dies, even of natural causes, and if it's like from a criminal activity, then they have to then the property's stigmatized. So it doesn't make a difference to me. It's just kind of interesting that we're about to close on this thing and the person needs to sign the contract. Unfortunately, he passed away. I guess he was older and had a lot of health issues anyways. Not terribly old, but had health issues. So we're like, fuck, we got this contract. We're trying to lock this deal up at $35,000, right? But the guy's dead. How are we going to get someone to sign? So we had to wait since we had a binding agreement, then we still had the rights to purchase. We talked to the seller's attorney, or our wholesaler talked to the seller's attorney, right? And the attorney's like, yeah, we just got to figure out like the inheritance, who gets title or who gets the right to sign on the property. I don't know exactly how the legal dynamics of that works because it's not a situation I deal with frequently, but we knew that we still had equitable interest in the property, right? So whoever got the property still had to sell it to us. Seems like they were compliant. So get this. Owner's daughter, so there was an owner-occupied duplex, right? Guy died in the property. Owner's daughter gets the property, and she wants to go to sell it to us. Now, we do one more walkthrough because now we have a vacant unit downstairs that we didn't think was vacant, and it's been emptied out. We get in there, it needs a lot more work than we thought. So we go to the wholesaler and say, we're going to need this at 30, like we said in the first place. This 35 is not going to work. And she's like, oh, fuck, Mike. Mike is my business partner. He runs the acquisition side of our business. And we're like, what? She's like, I don't want to talk to this seller anymore. You guys got to pay 35. We're like, no, we're not going to pay 35. We'll talk to the seller if you want. And she was worried about us undercutting her. We're like, we'll sign a non-circumvention agreement. We're not going to undercut you for a couple $1,000. We'll give you your fee. But she's like, well, my fee is $5,000. So you got to get this person to drop from 30 to 25. Because apparently the seller was getting 30 already. She'd already busted them back, right? And we're like, all right, we'll do it. All right. She's like, all right, I'll give you a number. And don't mention my name. Don't even talk about me to her because I don't like this girl. We're like, what do you mean you don't like this girl? Well, apparently the girl who inherited the property, the owner's daughter, went to high school with the wholesaler. And the owner's daughter, I couldn't fucking make this up. I'm just trying to remember the story off the top of my head because it's been a year. The owner's daughter was dating a guy, had a kid with him, right? And then the guy left her, and that guy is now with the wholesaler. Right? So the wholesaler basically took the new property owner's man some years back, right? And then we don't realize this till we get on the phone because the wholesaler said, oh, hey, this is yeah, we know each other. We went to school together and stuff. So Mike gets on the phone with the owner, goes, hey, I was talking to such and such, the wholesaler here. I'm going to be the end buyer. I'm the investor that's buying this. I'm good for it. But this is the extra work we have to do. She said you guys were friends. That girl goes, we're not fucking friends. She doesn't know me like that. We went to high school. I had a kid with this man. She just snatched him up from me. So we're just fucking dead over this situation. We go back, we get our number. We get our $25K plus $5K fee. So we get our 30, right? We go back to the wholesaler and go, oh yeah, so apparently she said you took her man. She's like, I didn't take him. He wanted me, he didn't want her. So we're just fucking it couldn't get better. Like, the fact this is a 30K property was great. I would have paid probably like another $2,500 premium just to have this story to like enjoy and tell over time. So we ended up locking it up for 30K. We ended up rehabbing this thing. We ended up putting a new roof on it. We got a good deal on it. Roof, gutters, plywood, all that stuff for this duplex for like $8,000. And then we rehabbed both units. I think it cost us like $7,500 each, something along the lines of it, right? That's deal number one. So that's 21K in rehab. The property was renting for, it's $750 a month each. We locked in 2-year leases with these tenants. We rented it kind of low, but market rents are like $825 each, and we were all into it for a little bit over 50. So it was a pretty sweet deal here. The next property is what I call, actually, well, let's take a step back. The property's worth $160 now, right? And there might be a couple things that like need to be done. We're going to do an official third-party inspection. We're selling it to one of our buyers. And if there's some extra stuff that needs to be done to really get it prim and proper, we'll give them some credits and say, just keep it in an account until you need to do this. Don't waste the money now on things that don't have to be done today. Just hold on to it. So maybe we'll net a little less than 160, but let's call it 155, right? But the property's worth 160 now. So 52 all in, 160, that's a fucking home run deal, right? And it took some time. Like, these vacants that need full rehabs, these rehab crews just aren't in our back pocket working for us every day, right? It's through our property management company. So we have to wait, we have to lose a little bit of money to get our equity later on, and then deal with all the bullshit, right? And find the deal. So deal number 2, I'll call this one, No, It's a House. No, It's a House. So we get this deal right in the heart of COVID. So like the market's low, and the guy wanted 50. We got him down to 45. And then we got him down to 42. And he insisted this property is a house in Indiana. Same market actually as the first one. Ironically, the first one is also, this makes it even saucier somehow, a little cherry on top. It's on Deal Street, which is pretty funny because it was such a fucking deal. It's like it was meant to be, right? We bought a couple properties on Deal Street. This second one, No, It's a House. So the guy calls us, he gets his price. We didn't really negotiate him much, right? This guy bought this property at a tax sale like 4 or 5 years ago, kind of in the bottom in this area, or 4 or 5 years before we had gotten on the phone with him. So like 2015, he bought it for a few $1,000s. According to him, it's a house, and it's a 3-bedroom house, and he's got tenants, a bunch of tenants all kind of sharing it, right? And he's got a crappy manager. It's not even a management company, and he lives in Indianapolis, and this is several hours away, and he hasn't seen it ever since he's bought it, and he doesn't really get much money out of it. The manager's screwing him over. The tenants don't always pay, and he's fixed the furnaces, and that's it, right? He's replaced furnaces, but he literally bought this property for like $3,000 on a tax sale and put maybe another 4 into it, and then that's all. He's in it for like 7. So that's a home run for him, because things were really going cheap if they were like slightly distressed back then, right? There was just a really, really bad time in the market for anything that needed work, and it wasn't in great shape. So he was in this for $7,000. We're getting it for 42. It's still a good deal. But before we make the offer, we get on the county record site and we go, let's see how many square feet this is and what the tax bill is, all that good stuff. And it says on the improvement information and on the property card, it says 2-family dwelling platted lot. And he goes, we give him a call back and go, hey, is this a duplex? He goes, no, it's a house. And we're like, he's a kind of grumpy old Arab dude, reminded me of my dad. When he says no, he doesn't want to hear about it anymore. We're like, well, the county record says 2-family dwelling. He goes, no, it's a house. He's like insisting. I'm like, bro, you've never seen the property. You might not know that this is a duplex, right? So the floor plan looked duplex. We're like, fuck it, whatever. Sent the inspector out. We're going to wholesale this deal to somebody for 75. So we're going to make like 30 on it, right? I think we're going to give him some credits on it. So maybe it was 25. Not a whole lot. But like a decent wholesale spread, but not a big pop, right? Not a hundy pop or anything like that. So we get our inspector out. It's a duplex. It's definitely a duplex. The front unit is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. It's got like a finished basement. It's pretty large. And then there's a back unit that apparently the son of one of the ladies in the front unit is living in, like kind of adult son, right? Living in the back unit. And there's also a garage behind it. So it's definitely a separate apartment. There's separate meters. There's 2 furnaces. The guy replaced 2 furnaces. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about, bro? Why would there be 2 furnaces if it was a house? 2 water heaters, 2 gas, 2 electric meters, all that good stuff, right? So it's definitely a duplex. We go to close. Our buyer's going to get this deal from us, and we make $25,000 or something like that. And what do you know? Title issue pops up. So when he bought it at the tax sale, the old owner was never properly removed from title. The title company wanted to issue something called a quiet title, like a motion for quiet title, where there's a chance for that person to respond and lay any claim to the title, or at least kind of like resolve the issue with the person that's on title. And if they don't within that period of 90 days or however long it takes for the quiet title, then the encumbrance just drops off, and they'll insure over it, all that good stuff, right? So it took way longer than 90 days. It took probably like 8 months or something like that, because the seller was super non-responsive and slow to get documents over. He just didn't give a shit. Eventually, we closed on it, I want to say like 7 or 8 months after we got into contract, so it took forever. And our buyer had dropped off at that point, right? He was on to other things. We were fine with that. We sent our property manager in for a final walkthrough before closing, because we might as well see this thing again. It's been 8 months. Our property manager goes, hey, there's more raccoons living in here than people, but it's a good property. It's a good deal, and we can get high rents for this front. We can get $1,100 for this front house all day, and we can get $800 for that back apartment standard all day. You just need to do the cosmetics. The mechanicals are good. There's a little bit of exterior stuff. So we're like, cool, giddy up. Jumped right on it, got it for $42. The amount of stuff that tenant left when they move out. So the tenant was non-compliant. They weren't paying. And in Indiana, you don't really have to evict tenants most of the time, because they know the laws are so landlord friendly that you can't just like not pay for months at a time and then go to court and then have any claim to staying in the place any longer. And court dates are scheduled quickly, right? So this thing gets booked up in court within 30 days, the tenant's out. So the tenant knew that. They didn't care. They weren't paying for like 1 month, second month, we sent them the notice. They just got up and moved out anyways. So we have these 2 vacant units. The amount of trash out, one thing that you guys will learn over time is when you deal with these vacants, people leave a bunch of stuff. Trash out's fucking expensive. Trash out is expensive. It was like $2,500 worth of trash out, because when you have furniture involved, plus personal belongings, and all the cleaning that's required, like just to get it like empty enough to rehab that thing, it's a fucking pain. So we end up spending like $2,500 on trash out. When they have garages, they leave tons of shit in the garage when they bounce out of these places, and you're not going to go chase them and try to like reconcile your balance, right? So it's never going to be the case. You're not going to go sue your working class tenant and try to get some cash out of them. They'll just file for bankruptcy or something like that. It's pointless. The legal fees will cost you more than the money you can get out of them. So trash out, complete rehab, complete cosmetic rehab. And it wasn't cheap because the square footage was pretty high. So we probably spent like $18K on cosmetics, $19K on cosmetics in this place completely. And then a little bit of exterior. Like we had to rebuild the front steps. The concrete was really crumbly and fucked up. So we had to completely like remold those front steps or reform those front steps. Some guardrails and some gutters, soffits, and fascia around the property that we fixed. We just kind of spruced it up, right? So we spent another 20-ish on that property as well. And we ended up being all into it for about 62. This property is it's in a pretty good neighborhood. I'd say like on the C++, right? And it's a good amount of square footage, and it's a single-story duplex with a big front unit. That's not a full rehab. That's 20 grand's not that bad. So especially when you get it for 42, right? So we ended up sprucing this thing up, and it's worth easy 180 and more, I would say, because nearby comps for top-bottom duplexes that are relatively nice are like 195, but they're top-bottom. This is a big front back, so we're selling this thing for $180,000. Same story as the other one. If we find some extra stuff on the inspection, gladly give our buyer the money for it. And that ended up being a sweet deal. So those are the purchases, and those are the stories behind them. It's kind of funny when someone argues that their property like isn't 2 units, because we would have paid them more if we knew it was a duplex, but whatever it is. Who gives a shit? These people kind of like force their good deals upon us sometimes. It's wild. Look, the total process, here's some numbers on all of it. We're all in for 114, right? Purchase plus rehab. The rehab itself was about 42. Now you write off that rehab immediately, so that's about 21,000 in tax savings there, right? The cash flow for about the year that we owned it, because we had a good amount of vacancy for the time that we owned it, but as soon as we occupied, because we were rehabbing it, right? But as soon as we got the units filled and occupied, the properties had like no expenses because all the maintenance was done in like one fell swoop, right? So we made about 22K in cash flow on these 2 properties in the, I don't know, maybe 9 months they were rented, 8 months they were rented, something like that. and we're going to sell them in total for $340,000. So $21K in tax savings, $22K cash flow, $340K sale. That's a $200 and something thousand profit. But we'll talk about the profits later when it comes to once we've talked about the complete replacement of these properties and the equity in the total package at the end. Right, so just showing you though that 114 saved us some money on taxes, cash flowed us, and half the rehab was covered by the cash flow actually within the first year. And we basically tripled our all-in the property value on these things. So they were home runs. The replacement. So look, why are we selling these in the first place? That's a good question. Our investors ask us sometimes, why do you sell your properties to us? Like, they're good properties, why don't you keep them? And you guys got to understand, we buy a lot of properties, right? And recently we started buying for ourselves. So it's been about a year and a half, almost 2 years that we've been buying properties for our own portfolios. We've very quickly gotten to like 90 units. Most of them are free and clear. And there's a reason we're only at 90. And that's because most of them are free and clear. There's a reason most of them are free and clear. It's because they're too small for us to bother our banking relationships with. And they're too small for us to commit to long-term loans on, knowing that we're going to want to buy much bigger things. And the cash out refi is not a large chunk of cash at once. We like to under leverage. There's too many little loans on all these things. You know, for an investor that's planning on owning or planning on buying this year 100 more units easily, if not more, and then next year hopefully 200 units, just because we should have like our acquisitions pipeline and our financing relationships more dialed in. We have a lot of extra cash and a lot of 1031 money. Duplexes don't fit long term. They fit short to medium term. Even if they're really nice properties, even if they're stable properties, we just need to get them into something that's less burdensome administratively for us, right? So we end up selling these things knowing that we could trade it into something that's much less burdensome. And the example here is we've sold these 2 duplexes that we were into for 114, and because we've only spent 114 on them, we can only squeeze so much tax write-off out of them because the depreciation is based on your property's basis, and your basis is based on your purchase price. And when your purchase price is so low, way below market value, you don't get to depreciate them based on the 340. You get to depreciate them based on the 114 minus the rehab, actually. The rehab is written off separately. So we don't get big tax write-offs on tiny little steals because we buy them for way less than what they're actually worth, so they don't really save us any money. So we end up getting out of these things just so we can hop into bigger stuff. What we hopped into in total was 17 units across 3 deals, so only one more address, right? 2 addresses turned into 3 addresses, or 2 parcels turned into 3 parcels. But the 2 parcels are worth 340, bought for 114. The 3 parcels are worth 144, right? 1.44, bought for 11. So you get a giant tax write-off on that 11, and it's 17 units, and they happen to be B-class units, right? Which long-term we want to rebalance our portfolio with, and that's because we don't want to think about properties. We're really bad at not even bad at. We want to put our effort towards this business. I have an account manager here that has 2 functions. I have 2 account managers, but this one that I'm talking about, she has 2 primary roles. Role number 1, make sure our transactions for our investment firm, our flipping business, close in a timely fashion and problems are resolved. We make a lot of money on that. A lot more money than rental properties. A lot, like 20, 30, 40 more times per quarter than we do on our rental properties net income every quarter. Her second job is managing our rental portfolio. Do you see why I want less parcels or less addresses? And I want properties that just make me less money, but just don't cause us like burden. So that's why we bought some more B-class stuff. We're gonna make less cash on these things, definitely. Because the stuff we sold was all turnkeyed and dialed in and all that stuff. We're gonna make a lower cash on cash return, but it allows me to talk to my account manager about big closings that make us $100,000 at a time rather than rental properties that are making us $800, $900 net a month, right? So I just don't want her working on that so much. That's the reason we've transitioned into bigger stuff and trying to add more B-class stuff to our portfolio. So the replacements, let's talk about the replacements. They got 3 names, right? I've given these affectionate names as well. They're not as funny of names because I have like a better sense of respect for these properties because they didn't come from crazy baby mama dramas and guys that don't even know if their property's 1 unit or 2. Look, the 3 properties are called The Works, the OG, and the doctor. Right, so we'll go into them one by one, and I'll tell you a little bit more about every property. So the first one, the Works. Why is it called the Works? It's called the Works because this is a 5-unit building in a nice area of Indiana, and it's got a little bit of everything going on. So it's got 3 residential, 2-bedroom, 1-bath standard size units, like 800 square foot units. And then it's got 1 giant 1-bedroom, 1-bath unit. I think it was a 2, like townhouse style unit at some point, and then like it was converted for a tenant that had a specific need because she was living there long term. I think she's still living there. So it was made into a big master bedroom, or maybe there's just a larger living space or something like that. It's like a 1,500 square foot 1-bedroom unit in a nice neighborhood that's renting for, I don't remember what it's renting for. I think it's renting for like $1,400 or $1,500 or something. And then it's got a barber shop in the bottom, right, with a long-term tenant, been there like 10 years. That's kind of interesting. I have no problem with that. In a good neighborhood, I'll take a commercial space, especially if it's got a long-term tenant and it's something like very just commodity, like a barber shop, right? It's not like you're trying to find someone to take it and make it a liquor store or a smoke shop or something like that. And then it's got a big like 2.5 or like 3-car garage in the back of the building with a giant parking lot, by the way, that's ours. So we have this big parking lot behind this building. And then we have this shop style garage, and it's heated and ventilated, right? So it's got HVAC in there, and it's got a side entrance too, with like a space that could be like fashioned into a little office. So that's not rented, but that's like a little shop basically, and it's 500 square feet, so it's useful. And then it's got a giant shipping container, like a double length, like, one of those like pods. It's literally like one of those shipping containers that are all backed up in LA right now. There's like a shortage of them. It's got a big old shipping container sitting in that lot as well. So this property's got a little bit of everything. So it's called the Works, right? This seller's been in our pipeline for like 2 or 3 years. He always wanted a little too much for this property. He never really wanted too much for this property. The reality was we were never looking for properties that were nicer with lower cash flow the same way we are now. So obviously his price has gone up over the 2 or 3 years that we've talked to him. We finally got it from him for $400,000. At its current rents, we value it at either $525 to $550. Right? So it's worth a good bit more than what we're purchasing it for, and we don't have to do anything to get it up to that value. That's the beautiful part, right? And if we raise rents, there's not really any rehab to do. But if we raise rents, fill that garage, rent out that shipping container, maybe to the owner, because he's got a ton of his stuff in the basement. So we're thinking of telling him, hey, what's the standard cost for storage in the area? We'll give you a slight break, and we'll let you just move your things out of the basement up into the shipping container. So be our tenant, and then we'll rent out that garage to somebody else and just gradually bump rents everywhere else slowly over time. Ends up being a great deal. Rents for a little over like $6,000 a month. So great rents on this thing. We're going to get a loan on this thing for 65% LTV. We like higher down payments. It makes the bank really confident in the collateral. We have enough cash. We're not in a shortage of liquidity. So we like under leveraging. So this property is going to be a decent cash flow and a predictable cash flower. And it's worth 125 to 150 more than we're purchasing it for as is. So that's how we found it. The second deal is, I'll call this the OG. Why do I call it the OG? It's because this guy's been in our fucking pipeline for 5 years. It's like one of our earlier leads. We've had multiple different sales reps working him. He's been around the block, right? And we finally got him. He's such a hard ass. It's an 8-unit building, also in Indiana. It's a tiny 8-unit. It's like 5,000 or 4,500 square feet. It's all 1 bedrooms with like 2 efficiencies. Heat all included. But you know what? We got into this thing. We thought because this guy was such a prick that the building would like have little issues with it that he didn't want to tell us about. It was immaculate. It was really nice. And we got this 8-unit for $350,000. Nice property. It's like an L-shaped brick building with like a big front lawn and a nice like entryway, and then a parking lot out back, like dedicated parking spaces. Really nice for these working class buildings. I'd say B- neighborhood. And the 1 bedrooms aren't really a problem because you end up getting like basically single dudes that just fucking want to work and just chill in their apartment, drink a beer, maybe 2, maybe 7 beers, watch some Sports Center and go to sleep. Wake up in the morning, repeat the process, right? So these 1 bedroom inefficiencies, a lot of people like tend to stigmatize them in the rental property world, but in working class neighborhoods, there's actually a strong demand, and we've heard this from property managers all around. There's a strong demand for these ones. You don't end up having like, the single parent, the person with kids that are growing up that needs to move to a bigger, better place, or the person that's eventually looking for a house. You don't actually capture any of these people in these 1 bedroom apartments. You capture people that just want a place to rent and not bothered. That's it. So 8 unit for 350 grand. We could sell it today easily for 475, and that's because it's really under rented. And that's one of the reasons we might purchase a property rather than sell it to our investors. There's so much meat on the bone. We could sell this thing if it was rented at market value or anywhere close to market value. We could sell this thing for $525. So we're not trying to leave $50,000 on the table. Let's get it for $350 ourselves. We're gonna buy this one cash and decide to refinance it later. And we're gonna 1031 that $340 from those 2 properties across this portfolio, or maybe just into this one cash, and then we'll figure out some new 1031s for the rest of it, right? We'll refinance it afterwards, get most of our money back. Our bank will give us 65% back. I don't mind putting $350 down cash, selling those 2 duplexes, all $340, and pump them into one property, find some other stuff to sell for the next properties. But yeah, 8 units, $125,000 of instant equity with more equity upside with some rent increases and not any rehab needed. Just keep these long-term tenants and just give them small bumps. Keep them. Like, we don't want them to move. Just bump them $50 each over time, or upon lease renewal, and just keep them there afterwards and give them market increases thereafter. That'll instantly give us another $25,000, $30,000, $40,000 of value on this property just from one lease renewal period, and it was already a good deal. So that's the OG. Yeah, it took us 5 years to get this guy. He finally signed a contract, and he was such a fucking asshole. He's still an asshole, but he was such an asshole about it. He did not want to sign a contract until after we inspected it. Well, inspecting an 8-unit building with a 3D inspection attached to it, that's $1,500. It's not cheap, right? So he wanted us to burn $1,500 before he committed to us, and we're like, fine, dude, we'll do it. So he was difficult. The third replacement is called the Doctor. Why do I call it the Doctor? A couple doctors own it, right? Actually, one of the owners is a doctor, and he's the difficult one. He's the one that kind of gave us all the rules and made us wait forever to sign the contract and got his attorney overly involved for an easy deal. This one's in Kentucky. It's in Louisville. It's a big 4-plex, all 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath. We got it for $350. We could sell it now for $440, maybe a little more if it wasn't so under rented, but it's under rented. It's bringing in $900, $950 each. Market rents, we thought they were $1,000, $11 maybe. Our property manager's like, no, $12, $12.50, $13 for each of these. We're like, oh shit, that's great. So we were gonna sell this property, but we're like, hey, we need some depreciable basis. We need to buy more, and we have these smaller properties to 1031 out of. Let's just take this one down too. So we're getting this for $350. It is right next door from you guys remember my video last week or 2 weeks ago, a Lowe's, a Target, a Walmart Supercenter, and a Costco. You saw my live last week where I had the Kirkland shirt on. Rental property near a Costco. I know some people will think I'm joking and go, there's bad neighborhoods near Costco's. You're not understanding. You're looking at it from a homeowner's perspective, right? Of course, as a homeowner, you look at a neighborhood and go, well, that's working class, or that's kind of rough. From a point of view of would I live there? Would I want my kids there? Would I want my spouse there? What kind of schools does it have? That's not how rental neighborhoods are graded, folks. We're talking about property crime, rent growth, long-term tenancy, income source. That's what makes a neighborhood C versus B. And I don't even think about A-class rental neighborhoods at all. It's really just C or B. And then there's D, which is just like you don't even look at it. You're talking about working class with a mixture of fixed income. And then you're talking about working class, strong incomes, amenities nearby, stronger potential for rent growth, much lower cash flow, right? Much lower cash flow on the front end. That's what this neighborhood is in, or this property. That's the kind of neighborhood this property is in. It's a big old 4-plex. So is it a steal at $350? No, but we're using money from steals to trade into it, and we're still getting another $90K of instant equity on top of that because it's worth $90 more than what we're buying it for. So does it make a difference that it's not a super steal? Or no, it shouldn't. It really doesn't, right? We're taking income that we're not getting taxed on and trading it into more depreciable basis. So those are the 3 properties, the Works, the OG, and the Doctor. Look, the Doctor on this deal, the funny thing is that we were trying to buy a 50-something unit building from him. 50-something? Yeah, it was like 55 units or something. Also in Louisville, not as good of a neighborhood, and he wanted top dollar for it, and we were considering it, but his P&L statement fucking sucked. The expenses were just through the roof. And we couldn't justify buying a property that was going to break even for, he was saying $4 million, but he has offers for $3.7 from people he doesn't like. We're like, hey, you might like us more, we'll give you $3.7. I'm glad we didn't do it. because this property would get much greater rents. It's in a much better neighborhood. And we end up getting this thing for a similar price per unit with bigger units in a better neighborhood than his 50-something unit property. And that's just because institutional or kind of corporate buyers, bigger buyers would consider a 50-something unit building rather than a fourplex. So we ended up getting his little throwaway deal, which is perfect. It ended up being a good deal. And the three together, so the process to buy these, we're buying the first one with a loan, the second two all cash. And that's just because the lenders are too slow to deal with these difficult sellers or to make these difficult sellers happy. And that's what it takes to get a good deal sometimes, folks. Like, people go, man, maybe I'll just go get the good deals myself instead of buy them from someone like Elliot, right? Or buy them on the open market or whatever it is. You got to be ready. Like, we're dumping $700,000 cash out of our pocket to get these properties and take them down, then possibly doing a reverse 1031 to get the money back, right? And then financing after the fact. You've got to be ready. You've got to be able to capture these good deals. But only one of them is being purchased with financing at this point in time. A refi may happen later with the other two, but we're going to be out of pocket, the 1031 money included, like $800,000 of equity to buy these. But that's fine because I'll break down the total gains on the whole portfolio. So this portfolio turned into $1.1 million of total purchase price, 1.44 value. 340K of that 1.1 million came from 114, right? Invested in two duplexes. So 114 turned into 340. That 340 was used to purchase one that's worth 144. That's another 340. So that right there is $680,000 of equity generated from 114 of initial equity, initial investment. It's a pretty big gain, right? So you 6x that or 7x that about, and then we've got some extra gains here. So we've got some write-offs from the rehab on the first set of properties. That's 21K in tax savings. You got 22K in cash flow. And then you've got the bonus depreciation effect. What's the bonus depreciation effect? Well, now that we got a big lump sum of properties, and this ended up being a long live, hopefully the technical stuff helped you guys kind of picture the flow of deals. But the bonus depreciation effect on these properties, we've got $1.1 million worth of property now. That's big enough to say, let's go do a cost segregation study. I've made tax write-off lives. Go back and watch them if you're not familiar. But what you could do is take this property and say, the IRS lets me depreciate 3.6% of its value per year, of this 1.1 per year. Well, the 1.1 minus the land, so call it $1 million. So normally you could write off $36,000 a year in depreciation, but this cost segregation study allows you to take 20 to 30% in the first year of that $1 million improved basis all at once. So we're going to get about $300,000 of bonus depreciation out of these new properties year one. That's a $300,000 tax write-off, right? Multiplied by your total tax rate, your marginal tax rate, and that's your savings. Your marginal tax rate, your top bracket, right? And then we get that straight line depreciation, that 3.6% on the 700 that remains. So that's what, $25,000 more. So we're getting about $160,000 off of our tax bill to buy these properties, plus the 680 in total equity generated on the 114, plus the cash flow of 22K, plus the write-off on the rehabs. You crunch it all together, and it comes out to about $880,000 of net value, whether it's through tax savings, cash flow, or total equity. And you bought that $880,000 with 114 in a year and not a lot of effort. And that's the big message here. And we have to go through a big sequence so you could see every piece of it and how funny these deals are and how they have their own stories and the techniques you have to use to take them down and the process to actually add the value and make sure they're worth what you think they are. But the snowball effect is very real if you put all these pieces in place. And what I'm hoping that you're able to see through this live is that you have a lot of control over your deals. And you have a lot of control over the chess game, right? What you plan to do in the future with them. Because you can predict the value of a property relatively reasonably. The market is not super volatile when it comes to real estate. It could be, but when you have so much upside, imagine if the market crashed. Those duplexes, we'd still be in them for 114. And yeah, we'd make less on the sale, and then we'd go buy that 1.1 worth of property for 900. So it'd be the same result, right? the key here is being hands-on and active. And for the investor that wants to be passive, I'm sorry, you can only use certain pieces of this equation. You can't get all that instant equity in there. It's probably not going to happen. But for the investor that wants to be active, the investor that wants to be full-time, you want to be a real estate investor by trade. This is what you need to do. This is how you need to blow it up. You do a couple small deals, you make some money, you learn how to find good deals, and then you find really good deals and you trade them into more really good deals over time. And if you just do the math on this, enough duplexes, you do this with 10 sets of duplexes, that's 40 units in 1 year. And what did you do? Well, you turned $1 million of equity into $8 million of equity in 1 year. That is a lifetime of net worth for very few people, for the wealthy even. And you could do it in 1 year if you learn how to create a real estate business and find good deals and take advantage of the tax status that you get. So there's my wrap up. I'll stick around and do about 10 minutes of Q&A. I know I dropped a lot of you off because we got so deep into this deal, but the real ones stuck around because it was just a gold mine of information. But I gotta imagine there is a lot of question mark hovering over your head because I probably went through that fast and it's all muscle memory for me. But let's see what you got. Can this be done simultaneously while working a 9 to 5? So yes, however, you will not qualify for the real estate professional tax status. And so that means you can't there's a limit on how much depreciation you can actually take from your rental properties and use to offset your ordinary income when you're not a full-time real estate professional. So you're going to be missing out on that part. The other bit is it's a lot of work, folks. Those 2 properties weren't a lot of work, and finding those other 3 weren't a ton of work. But I also have spent years with Mike building this business. Our acquisitions reps have spent years nurturing their pipelines to get these deals. Some of these deals have been in the pipeline for multiple years at a time before we capitalized on them. All right, so it's not just how much time does it take to find that one deal. It's what does it take to build the ecosystem that spits off these deals. And the ecosystem is what takes the effort. And then it kind of operates itself, but you're still managing it, right? And you're building it up. So yeah, if you want to do this, folks, 114 turned into 884. You shouldn't be worried about your 9 to 5. You should find a way to side hustle up enough extra income to justify transitioning. I think that would be my first step. That's what I did. That's how I got into this business. I was working a 9 to 5, making 6 figures a year. And it was a good job. It was cushy enough for me, and I was hustling up deals. And in my first year of doing this on the side, I ended up making Mike and I combined made I think 220. So, and we were doing it for about 9 months, and we had barely started, and really most of the money was concentrated towards the end. So we had replaced our incomes and then quit and did this full time. So it's not impossible. You got to be savvy for sure. You got to build a good business. I can't say that we didn't have a quality business. Even at the stage that we were in back then, considering how early on we were. It was nowhere close to now. Obviously, this is a far more refined operation than before. But yeah, sticking to your 9 to 5, and then just trying to get magical deals on the side. If you got a taste of this, you'd quit in a day, right? But you don't just get a taste of it overnight either. You have to build towards it. Best way to get leads in your pipeline. Look, there's a cumulative effect to marketing and lead generation. It's not just I'm going to send out mailers and get leads. I'm going to make cold calls and get leads. No, you have to keep hitting the same people over and over. You have to build a sense of recognition about you and your brand. But we have people bringing us deals now. And you always hear it from investors. It never made much sense to me. Years ago, you'd hear people say, where do you find your deals? And investors would go, people just bring them to me. The banks bring them to me. The managers just bring them to me. Someone just brings me deals, and I never got it. And I still think marketing is a far better way. Our best deals don't come from people usually. They come from our own marketing efforts. But we probably have people bring us deals that we actually sign a contract on at least once a week. We get at least a deal a week that meets our standards, that has a thick wholesale spread, or we're going to purchase it, a 20 to 30% wholesale spread, or we're going to purchase it ourselves one time every week. And I think that could actually be much bigger. And those are leads that we sign a contract on, not the number that are brought to us. I think we could be signing contracts on 5-6 good deals a week that people are bringing to us. And that comes from time in the game. But a lot of people won't stick around long enough to see the result. So just know that if you outlast them, you will reap the benefits. What if you've already left 9 to 5? Creative financing deals, or creative financing ideas. I say ditch creative financing, go make some money. If you can find a good deal, sell it. Make some money. Put yourself in a position where you don't have a problem financing, being a borrower, because eventually it's going to run dry anyways. The banks are going to want to, you're going to want to deal with the bank at some point. You're not going to want to deal with limited opportunities that will allow you creative financing, right? I mean, yeah, they're great if you can get someone to sub to you a property that's actually at a good price and not like premium or top of market value. Cool, but you'll be turning down a ton of opportunities that won't allow you to do that, just to find that one little magic needle in the haystack that probably won't be as good of a deal as some of the previous ones because you need creative financing. Find good deals, find another way to monetize them that doesn't involve you, or that doesn't involve you owning them. And then you'll be in a position where you can buy them after some time. Have you considered crowdfunding on my bigger deals rather than using the bank? No, and I don't buy a lot of bigger deals. A lot of the properties that I buy are right around 300, 400, 500 grand for myself. And I'm happy because I could buy them in volume and the bank will lend to me in volume. Now, would I like to get into bigger stuff? Like we had a $5 million property hit our pipeline the other day. Yeah, that wasn't the right property. I think there was some things about it that we didn't love, or else we would have probably jumped. And it was in a market we haven't operated in before, so we don't have good management relationships. But no, probably wouldn't do the crowdfunding thing or the syndication thing. At this point in time, we're not looking at that. We have a different business model that's like not regulated by the SEC. We're not selling shares of a business or a portfolio, so it's not a marketable security. We don't have to deal with tempering back the things that we say, the way we advertise on social media, our involvement with the investor after the closing, like the amount of service business we have to run versus not. It's not that appealing to us. And I think a lot of, what's funny is we'll talk to a lot of bigger multifamily investors who do the syndication thing, and they go, you guys got to get into bigger deals. And what they don't realize is that we probably make more money than them by a long shot. And that's okay. Like being under the radar like that is a desirable position because we could focus on a niche where the more sophisticated competition is disinterested. And that is inherently what makes us easy money. So that was probably the most golden line I've said in this whole live. And I don't think any of those guys running those big syndicates are going to watch this, which is fine. I prefer it that way. Tips to close off market deals when owners ghost you. Agreed on a price already. Look, you got to get into why. You got to get into why. And I would say you're never going to convince someone to do something they don't want, right? So don't try to close it. What you need to do is you just need to send a periodic message, maybe cool off, change your approach and go, hey, look, I get if you don't want to sell. I just want to know the reason. Like, could you just tell me what's going on so that way I follow up with you way later instead of every week or every day? Hey, don't worry. I understand you don't want to sign the contract. I could tell that you're just not ready to do the deal. Was it me or is it some other circumstances? Just so I know. Give someone a reason to be open with you. And if you give them a reason to be open with you, then you can follow up appropriately. Your job as a salesperson or the creator of a sales operation is to be present and credible and not to close, right? You just need to go ahead and let them know that if they are interested in this service, that you're communicating well or in doing business with you, you will be there and you are ready. And you can give them a predictable result. And if they're not there and ready, you're never going to change their mind. You're never going to change their mind. It's too big of a sale. It's okay that you missed most of this live. This is getting reposted in a few minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, something like that. Where can you learn about marketing and sales processes? Man, there's so many pieces to it. I wish I could have given you like a 1 hour video that I've made that would teach you about it, but I couldn't. There's so much more than you could say in an hour, 2 hours, 10 hours. I have a couple videos on sales, marketing, and negotiation. So you should scroll through the lives. And I made one recently on sales, and I made one maybe a year before on sales that's a little bit different. And a couple on business. You should look at some of my business sessions. I think they'll give you an idea about sales process and how to be efficient and design it so that it converts on itself without you having to put so much effort into it. I listened to a lot of podcasts before I started doing sales. I was transitioning from biotech research to software sales to make more money before I started this business, or right as I started this business. And I listened to the Advanced Selling podcast. like 4 or 5 episodes a day. They were short 20-minute episodes. I skipped past the little, promotions, and I just listened to the meat of it. I don't know if they're still good. Maybe the older episodes are the ones that you go for, but yeah, the principles of sales are important. The sales process, hard thing to learn. People don't talk about it so much. I'd say you got to dive in, actually do, and then have a continuous improvement mindset, and then look at like lean manufacturing principles. I picked that up in supply chain when I was working in science, but I was able to apply a lot of those principles to sales process development. And like I worked in a sales organization, they didn't apply these principles, and they were good. They didn't apply these principles. As far as marketing goes, I think it's the same as sales. You just be consistent with the message that you have when you're talking to someone yourself and when your message is reaching them via some different medium. Right? This is a different medium. I'm talking to you, but this is marketing. Right? I'm talking to 3,000 people in this live session, 10,000 will watch it over the weekend. It's a marketing tool. It's just my voice projected over a platform. Same with a written piece of marketing, same with a voicemail, same with a text message, same with a Facebook advertisement. It's all the same shit. How do you find deals when you're working your 9 to 5? Dude, market. Get a small mailing list, hit them. If you don't want to do that because you have to field leads, build relationships with wholesalers, build relationships with brokers, and just look for the little off market. Just talk to a realtor and go, hey, I'll take the off market, but you gotta be ready, right? You can't just be like the nitpicky, difficult one. There has to be a reason they bring you the better deal. Same with the wholesaler. Like wholesalers come to us first before they hit their buyer's list. Why? Because their buyer's list sucks. 2, they know we'll close. Right? They know we're legit, and they know we know what we want. So when we say yes, we mean it. So maybe a Facebook group, a Facebook marketplace might get you some deals too, but like it's tough, man. Our sales guy scours that shit. So if we happen to be in the same market as you, he's hunting. So you gotta get to the prey before him. Do I use private money lenders? Never. I've never used a private money lender. I've always either bought a property with financing or cash. Most of the time cash. What area would you invest in right now? Anything that yields enough to cover a loan at like 70% LTV. 65, 70, 75. You don't want to be in a market where you have to put 50% down for the bank to approve your deal and for your property to cash flow. Dallas, Texas, Orlando, Florida, obviously not in Austin, a Boise, a Salt Lake City, anywhere in California, anywhere in the Northeast. Like all these places, they're too expensive for the property to even cover its own debt at a reasonable LTV. You have to put 50, 60% down in some of these markets, more. And that's what people are doing. It's big cash, big 1031 money, big private money. And I mean like institutional money, like raised funds from investors, right? They're not using so much bank debt. You don't want to be in those kind of markets. So some of the cash flows, I like the Midwest and the South personally, a variety of states in them. I don't like the Ohio's and Michigans of the world. I don't like landlord-tenant law in those states, but yeah, Midwest and South works for me. And just look for a sub-market or a region that has like reasonable fundamentals. There's rent growth. Rent growth and the landlord-tenant laws aren't going to kill you. I'll take one more because we ran this a little long, and then I got to bail, repost this, and then do some other stuff today. I got to wire some money too, actually, for a couple closings. What would I recommend for an 18-year-old looking to invest in his first duplex? This is going to be not the answer a lot of people want to hear. The traditional real estate investors on Instagram would not applaud me for this. I'd say focus on making money. If I learned how to make money sooner, I would have had a much higher net worth earlier. And as soon as I learned how to make money, then investing became like just a fucking breeze, right? Just a very casual thing. And I was just talking to Mike today, literally before this live. We were talking about lessons learned, and lessons that he's learned from situations with sellers and escrows that we've dealt with, and just this business model that we have. And I told him an interesting lesson that I learned, and that lesson is I learned that from our investors, our clients that come to us. Over time, our clients have become wealthier, right? So we have these higher net worth clients than we used to. Just collectively, our clients that we work with are of higher net worth than they used to be 3-4 years ago. And what they've taught me is, but just by investing with us and seeing what they do for a living, is you do this thing that makes you a bunch of money, you focus on it, you do it really well, you improve it so that it makes you more. And then everything else you do with that money, you don't fucking let it get in the way. You just do it. And I said that because I find myself dicking around in the stock market so much. Can I say dicking around on live? Yeah, I can. Fuck it. Why I was dicking around in the stock market so much, reading all these Seeking Alpha articles, and the market's volatile now, so it's interesting, right? So you could find some decent deals, and I'm buying stuff, and I'm like, why am I spending my time doing this? I've got a $400,000 stock portfolio. It's a fraction of my net worth, and it's a fraction of what we earn in a quarter. So what am I doing spending time to try to find a slightly better deal on something that's a very like a negligible portion of my actual net worth and my income going into it? Like, what am I thinking? I should be doubling down on this business where I can make a much greater return in the amount of time I spend reading an article or just drinking my coffee, reading a couple stock articles, looking at my portfolio. I could probably make a piece of content that's going to get me digital product sales of $1,000 or something like that, right? So, we get distracted by things like investing. And investing is something you do. I've said this to you guys a million times. Investing is what you do when you got money. It's not what you do to get money. It's an expense. It's a rich man's game. It's a wealthy person's hobby. Now, should you invest when you don't have much money? Absolutely, in a fashion that doesn't occupy your effort. Right? Too much of your bandwidth. You want to budget very little effort towards it. It's not worth that much to you. What you need to do is just go make more. Then you'll be like, whatever, give me a fucking 7% return. I make millions. I don't care. I don't care about getting a 12. So that's the truth, y'all. It's the hard truth. A lot of people don't love that stuff. But that's what I'm here for. And one thing I want to insist upon is that, insist that you understand, is that I'm not a real estate investor first. I am a businessman first. I'm a real estate investor second. Real estate is the flavor of my business. I'm not wealthy because of investing in real estate. I'm wealthy because of building a business around investing in real estate. And that doesn't mean I manage my rentals like a business. That's not what I mean at all. I mean, I own an investment firm that flips properties, and we flip 100 properties a year. I make a lot more money doing that than the 100 units that I own, generating cash flow. So if you can, and you have the chops to, and you're young, you're ambitious enough, and you care to put in the effort to build something that's more of a machine, that's yours, that's proprietary, you will have a bigger return than thinking about how to get your first duplex. Just get your first duplex. Just don't think too much about it. All right, y'all. I'm on out of here. Have a great weekend. This is going to be reposted. Giveaway coming up soon. Thanks for staying late with me, and thank you for the people that stuck around for this whole long, kind of technical story about these properties. Hopefully it inspired some of you. I'll see you next week.